Okay.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar today. Let's talk about app development. Today's webinar is sponsored by the Glucuho Facilities and Operations Committee. My name is Jeremy Alexander. I'm the Glucuho Technology Coordinator, and I'm from Eastern Illinois University, and I'll serve as your moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items with you so to help to maximize your learning for this session. You will want to leave the GoToWebinar control box at the far right side of your screen. This is where it's most likely to be open when you just join the webinar. To ask questions, type in a chat box which will remain open for the entire presentation. The presenters will answer questions as quickly as possible, but we want to ensure that there's enough time to cover all our materials. Should you experience any problems, please type into the chat box and we'll work to assist you. At the end of the session, the presentation audio recording will be available on our website, glucuho.org, under Webinar Archive resources for your future reference. We encourage you to share your resource with your colleagues who are unable to attend today. At this time, I'll hand it over to one of our presenters, Robert King, our Facilities and Operations Chair.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. So good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Again, as Jeremy mentioned, this is a webinar sponsored by the Facilities and Operations Committee. My name is Robert King, and I'll be along for the ride myself. Today we have Matt Zhao with Eventus to talk a little bit with us about web app development. And I'm hoping that this will be an opportunity for entry-level and mid-level and housing and res life staff in general to just really get exposure to app development. So at this time, I'd like to thank Matt for joining us today and putting this together, and we'll allow him to get started. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the handoff, Robert, and thank you everyone here for joining us this morning. It's Thursday, so one more day till Friday. We're almost there. But before we get too much in the presentation, really just want to thank you again for having us here. This is a great opportunity for us to kind of share a bit more about mobile app development, share what we really love doing, and also at the end of the conversation, or at least the presentation, I kind of wanted to have an open conversation in terms of potential ideas for mobile app development and really get y'all's feedback as well. You'll notice I'm from Texas. I just said y'all, so I'm just going to toss that out there now. But cool. Let's just go into it. Yeah. So, of course, we're a mobile app development firm. There's me on the left there. Unfortunately, Peter wasn't able to join us today, but any questions you have, I'm sure I can answer. So, I guess to really, to conceptualize things a bit, we started off as a mobile app development firm, and we kind of had this idea that we could really make apps for anything we wanted to do. And so we were all, a few recent grads, fresh out of college. So we decided to kind of create some apps built off of where we went, and yeah, we kind of just thought, okay, how can we add value to the university system? And so we kind of thought to the university system and realized there's a lot of different departments. So you'll have orientations, career fairs, and even res life as well. And we really started off making apps for career fairs and career service departments, moved towards orientations, and now we're kind of seeing a bit more of a push towards res life as well. And the whole power behind this is that we had a few things in mind, and there's a reason why we decided to even do mobile app development in the first place. And it came with this idea that we're all millennials and kind of Gen Xers a little bit, but there's a few key statistics that we realized that we need to kind of cover should this be something that we want to pursue. And the first thing is that Americans, especially in a certain age group, are all using smartphones nowadays. Pretty much everyone has a smartphone within a certain age range, and especially younger generations have them as well. So this age group doesn't really even cover the whole gambit in terms of who you might even be viewing, but you can see a large majority already do, and that's really important because what you see with the next stat is whenever people are using their smartphones, they're actually using quite regularly to access content on mobile apps. And this helps them build sort of a frame of reference for what apps should be like, what app design should be, but also gives them an idea of how to integrate apps into their everyday lives. Whenever they open up an app on their phone, it kind of has this reinforcing activity that kind of drives more usage with the app every day, which makes it more normal for them to access content and really take anything they need on their phones as opposed to what they used to, which is their computers. And of course, a big part about that too is it's not enough just to have apps being used regularly by people. A real reason why that's actually happening in the first place is design standards and what people are used to seeing in mobile apps, well, that's all rising. And there's a certain standard that you have to reach in order to have people access content quite regularly. And that's why the last stat is actually really important, because it's not enough just to have an app that works. It's really quite important to focus a lot on the user experience and design in order to ensure that this app is actually something that's useful and will actually have people coming back. And so we had all these stats in mind. We had an area where we wanted to go into, and we all kind of started off in mobile app development. And this kind of helped drive the idea for really the Eventus platform, which is really just an app platform to kind of make apps for whatever you need. So whether or not it's career fairs or orientations, and in this case, residential life, which we'll get into a little bit. But the platform is designed to scale and fit whatever you have in mind, and so you can actually use the app for whatever. You could have it as an event app for whatever you might need for. So, for example, you might have training sessions for your RAs. This is a great opportunity to not just have an app for your residential life department, but also for any events that you might host throughout the year. And that's really just one example of how it could be extended beyond just sort of what you conceptualize it as now. So there's a few things to really keep in mind, though, for mobile app development. And the first part is, on a high level, this RA app that we're really presenting today about is meant to be an accessible resource for any of your RAs to have access to. It's meant to have all the training guides, meant to be a communication tool, and also have additional tools to help improve their experience and make it a little bit better for them throughout the entire year. And so there's a few things to consider, though, whenever you really think about this. How good is the user experience? As highlighted by the previous stat, really, you can't just have an app that kind of works. It has to work very well for people to bring more of their attention to the app, to integrate it into their daily workflow, to integrate it into their daily lives. And especially for RAs who might need to access an app very regularly, this is so important to really make sure you get right. Of course, also, is the platform scalable? You have to consider what's next. So, a lot of development firms will go out thinking they're going to create a product, they're going to create an app that really fits a specific need, and they're going to think, okay, this is 5 features, this is all we're going to need, this is going to solve problems. But as I'm sure you've seen, as time progresses, as things change, additional functionality, additional needs might pop up. And as a result, you have to think of an app in a way that can change and adapt to your needs, as opposed to stay static and really focus on what it was originally designed for. Because at that point, the development firm really can't consider anything else and can't really tack on anything new, which is going to be a detriment to you in the long term. And of course, does it actually bring on the necessary functionality? So you have to think about the app in terms of, does it work? Does it actually solve it? And as intuitive as it sounds, oftentimes people don't get that aspect right either. So there might be very buggy. It might be an app that kind of has what it needs to do, kind of solves the problem that you have in mind, but doesn't necessarily get to what your end goal is, which is what your department's bottom line might be. So in terms of that, these are all questions you really need to be considering as you move forward into the app. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into sort of the meat of what the presentation is supposed to be about today. And really, it's about this RA app that we're designing right now. So it's meant, of course, to have a few different pieces, and it can be summed up in 3 sections. The first is that it's meant to be a resource guide for all of your RAs to quickly have access to. It's meant to take any pen and paper that you might currently use and bring it onto a digital platform such as an app, so that they can pull it up whenever they need and actually add a layer of digitization to it. So it might be filtering and things of that nature, which I'll touch to in the later presentation. Additionally, it's meant to be a communication tool. You have to think about it in terms of how much more feedback can you get from your RAs? Can you reach out to them directly? Is there an extra layer for you to get in contact with them when you need it? And of course, the last one is really meant to be a functional tool, and this is more of an extension of our platform now. So this might be, as I bring up earlier, the ability to scale. And so the RA tool section is our new arm of development, where we really want to have an open conversation about what features you think might actually be useful for your RAs, or what are some of your bottlenecks, what are some of the older things that you guys might do that you want to move away from, and really help streamline your process and make things a bit more efficient for you. And so this is where the app can actually be a huge tool and value add for your RAs as well. And we'll kind of keep that as an open discussion and talk about that in a little bit. So, of course, the first thing is, as I mentioned, accessible resources. So the app is supposed to be a guide for your RAs to have access to. The app really can take anything that you have currently on pen and paper and put it in their mobile phone so they can quickly access whatever they might need. So this might be things like training guides, quick reference guides, crisis manuals. It's meant to be something they can pull quickly, get the information they need, and have access to it throughout the year. As I'm sure you might know, pamphlets gets lost, paper doesn't last too long, maybe they might toss it out. This isn't too useful whenever that happens, because in that instance they might have to go look it up online, or if it's not even an online resource, or if it's just a really unuser-friendly experience when they get to the information they might need, it may not be very useful for them to have that information in the first place. And of course, a few different pieces of this as well is that you can actually bring in agendas as well. So for example, if you have any training sessions throughout the year, you can also use the app to take that schedule you might have for them and port it into the app as well. So now it's a app that can support any sort of information on an ongoing basis for those training sessions. So these are all different examples, and to kind of bring a bit more light into it, for example, you might want to have your roles and responsibilities put into the app. So for the RA who can quickly go through and do their research beforehand, make sure they have all this information on hand. It might be any sort of requirements they might need to meet in terms of making sure they're actually maintaining their own RA standards, whether or not it's minimum GPA requirements, whether or not it's meeting with their directors enough throughout the entire year, whether or not it's even they're actually fulfilling their main goals, which is really curating that student experience and helping people feel like they're more welcome on the environment as well in their first year as students. So these are a few different ways they can pull it up. And of course, you might also have things like contact information as well. So this is a great way for students or even your RAs to really just pull up quick guides, your profile for staff, any RA contacts, so if you don't want this to just be an RA app, but just an app that can be used for your students to download as well, you can kind of curate that experience and have things on them, things on the app that might be useful for them as well. So beyond just the staff profiles, it could be the RA contact information and things of that nature. And of course, even campus maps can be brought into the app itself. So this is all extensions of what a resource should be, all extensions of what guides should be for your RAs and students have access to. So for example, if they need help finding where their halls are, if there are any events you're hosting throughout the year that you want them to go actually find themselves, this is sort of a campus map for them to pull up whenever they need it and navigate to where they might need to go. So this can be used honestly for basically anything. It doesn't have to just be the pinpoints for specific purposes. It could be pinpoints that you place on the map that might be for fun activities to do around the area, resources to take advantage of, any sort of training centers, gyms, things of that nature, restaurants as well. It can all be placed on a map because at the end of the day, it's meant to be a resource for anyone to have access to and to utilize. So this is a great opportunity for you to customize it a bit and kind of make it your own. And of course, the next part of the platform really is that it's meant to be a communication tool as well. So the RA app can be used, and because it's on a phone, as a way to get in contact with your RAs and also get a bit more feedback from them as well. So, for example, as part of our platform, we give you guys the ability to have a push notification portal, which allows you to send direct messages to your RAs or anybody who has the app downloaded. So this is a really easy way to kind of quickly send any notifications, remind them about activities they might need to do, or really just get in contact with them whenever you need to, because it's a message that gets sent directly to their phones. So it's a lot more likely for them to read it, and it's a lot easier for them to read it as well, because it often just gets sent as a message via the app. You can also integrate a few different things as well. You can have live Twitter feeds. You can even have in-app profiles created too to kind of help your RAs. And this can be highlighted in a bit, but I'll talk about it in a bit. So kind of give an idea to conceptualize it, this is the kind of the push notification portal that I had talked about earlier. This is a really easy way for you to send out notifications to your attendees, or sorry, your RAs in this case, and so they can literally have a message sent directly by you to their phones. So it doesn't have to be email anymore. It doesn't have to be some sort of phone call. It can be a quick message you send to them with any curated content you want to have. And of course, I touched a bit on the profiles a bit earlier, but so RAs can actually create profiles inside the app too. It can literally be whatever information you want them to have. So you get to choose what fields they need to fill out to really get an idea of who the RA might be. And this is important because, for example, push notifications can then be targeted based on the type of RA that, or at least what, on the RAs that you want to have access to it. So, for example, you can send notifications to a specific group of RAs who have a specific field filled out. So instead of the information you might see there, it might be what resident hall they're currently handling. And if it's for the RAs in this specific residence hall, you can send out a message directly to them so that only they're seeing that message and only they need to be notified of the information you want to send them. And of course, I kind of talked about, live polls and surveys. So this is a few additional value adds as well. So whenever it might have training for RAs, for example, you might want to get feedback from them directly. You might want to get feedback from training sessions as well, and relate it back to a specific session. So you can rate sessions, you can provide feedback on the entire experience altogether. You can really use this tool as a way to get feedback from your RAs throughout the entire year as well, to kind of help them give the feedback they need to give to you guys in order to make any improvements, to if there's any problems that they're currently facing, you can kind of address that as needed. And of course, we have a social aspect to it as well. Of course, every app has to be social nowadays, so we do offer the ability to integrate Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, if you want to build sort of a community inside the app and have them share their experiences throughout the entire year. Beyond that as well, so really, we're constantly thinking about what's next. And so the tools that we create are useful, but as I mentioned again, it has to scale and fit the need that you might have in mind. So the tools that we're making right now are just extensions of what we currently do. But the next section really is, how do we continue adding more value to you guys? How do we continue to push the needle and make sure that the value you're getting out of the app is actually useful for your RAs to continue using them? And so there's a few different things we're thinking about, but I kind of wanted to make this part a bit more of an open discussion to kind of get you all's feedback in terms of what you have in mind. So for example, we're thinking about creating systems for actually managing rooms. So for RAs can literally go, and I've heard in many cases it's literally still pen and paper, but we want to kind of move that onto a digital platform to where it's much easier to kind of check in on these things. So you might have an RA go and check a room, check in and check out. They can quickly mark whichever room they're managing and kind of make the condition about certain things. So whether or not it's a condition of a desk, the lamp, the bedstand, things of that nature, all these things can be digitized and managed inside the app so that you no longer need to worry about having your RAs write it down in pen and paper, upload it, and then kind of run through it later on, because all this information is now inside the app and can be exported as any format as you need it to be. And we're also thinking about bringing health and safety inspections. I know these things happen throughout the year. You might want to have some sort of guides that you put inside the app so that they can check off whatever markers they might need and make sure they're still meeting the same standards as well. But of course, you've heard this presentation. We kind of heard about the things that we do right now. If you have any specific questions or feedback, I'd really love to hear what you might have in mind in terms of the things I brought up for this section, or if you have any specific ideas of how the app could be extended to kind of help you guys. So Jeremy, if there's any questions for that, just let me know. If not, we can kind of move forward.
Matt, we had a question about whether the slides would be available after the webinar.
Yep, absolutely. I can make it available to whoever would like them.
All right, thank you.
Cool. So yeah, these are kind of things that we're just thinking about as well. We're always looking to expand the platform. We've designed it to scale to fit whatever need you might have. So we really wanted to make this a tool that you can actually utilize beyond just hosting information, but to actually add an extra layer of functionality for your RAs to have as well, and to kind of move processes that are probably making things a bit slow, to move them out of what they used to be and into something more of the 21st century. Of course, this is just a quick recap. Thank you so much for having us today. If there's any questions, please let me know. And then Robert, of course, thank you for having us to kind of give a quick presentation today as well about the app platform. It's really neat to be able to share some of the ideas we're working with, and especially with your region. So Robert, if you have any final words you want to say, please let me know. Otherwise, I guess we can kind of move forward.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, great. Thanks, Matt, for sharing. I think I know I had a question that was generated from looking at the presentation. I just want to go see if you can go back to slides maybe 9 through 12.
Yep, sounds good.
So when you're talking about, I guess, sort of developing an app, would you say that the suggested structure is to have the communication? It sounds like there was a suggested structure. Maybe it was slide 8 that you were at. Let me go back one more. Right here. Yes, accessible resource communication, and then the tools that they would need. Would you say that from your industry, that's really the suggested structure if you're going to try to create an RA app?
Yeah, this is kind of how we view it, and this really is born out of the idea of being able to think of the user first. And so you want to really think about what your RAs actually need out of the app. So, and then also think about the layers above that too. So what, and not just the RAs themselves, but sort of the managing departments, what do they need out of the app as well? And so for the way to think about the app, we really do recommend you think about it in terms of not only helping the RAs get what they need information for easier, but also ways that they can kind of provide feedback and give you guys the information that you need as well. So, of course, resources to have access to throughout the entire year is one way to do it, and then communicating by creating profiles, by being able to talk to you guys and give them, have them give you feedback as well. And then the tools as well is just an extension of the platform to really add that extra layer of functionality to make sure that they are getting the need out of the app as well. So, really it's all born out of what does the user need and what do they actually have in mind whenever they have the app as well. And does it provide the value they need in order to make the app useful for them to use? So this is kind of the structure we suggest. I think it's a really good way to kind of cover all the bases of what the app could really be used for in your department.
Awesome.
We have another question from Bob. Can other websites be used that do not have apps and access through your app design? Their campus uses RoomPack and RA Portal, so I was wondering if they can pass through to other systems.
So the apps that we release are native apps, and so in terms of our platform itself, it would just depend on how sort of they set up the system. I think it should be possible, but in terms of, it just depends on how their platform works. We keep things pretty open here, so if they wanted to be able to pass anything onto our system, and Bob, just want to make sure I'm answering the question correctly. Are you asking whether or not someone on that portal can then access our app, or are you saying does this information feed directly into our app?
I'm not seeing. I will unmute Bob. So Bob, if you have a phone or microphone, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm mostly looking for if someone were to have this app. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
If you have this app, some other websites we use don't have apps for themselves. So could you have it where perhaps in the resources there would be a designation or an icon for that particular app, such as Impact or something, where they could click on it, and of course, based on Wi-Fi availability, they could still get through it through you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually offer two different ways. You can either link out to a specific website, or you can actually host the website inside of the app. And so they never have to leave the app altogether. It just becomes a module that they'll access, and then it'll pull up the website, and they can still interact with that website, but also interact with our app at the same time. So that's actually something that's very important to have as well. So whenever you think about mobile apps and mobile app design, you want to make sure you don't limit certain functionality, such as being able to reach out to other websites. So definitely a good consideration, a good question. Yeah, our platform can do that, and then if it's a good mobile app platform, they should be able to do it as well.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. Matt, just one other question. I know you've used two terms. I just wanted to make sure that if you could maybe talk a little bit more about those terms. You've used scalable to sort of describe what an app should be, or some of the challenges that folks run into. Maybe if you could talk a little bit more about that. And then you just used native apps. If you could maybe just hit on that just a little. Yeah.
Sure. So just to kind of touch on the topic of scalability. Really the way to think about it is you don't want to think about your product as some sort of static product, meaning if I give you a box full of 5 things, that box full of 5 things shouldn't be only able to hold 5 things, right? It should be able to continue to add more things inside there as time goes on. But what ends up happening is scalability, it might be a box only big enough to hold those 5 things. And the way we kind of think about it is, how do we continue adding more things inside there that if you need it, we can do so. And so that's kind of the conceptual idea of scalability, is that it's being able to add in more blocks when you need it, and without being restricted based on any existing conditions. So maybe the size of the box that you're adding the blocks into, for example. And the way a good scalable platform will be is that you can think of that box as being an infinite size. There is no limitation to that box size, so that you can continue to fit whatever you need inside there as time goes on. And so that's sort of the conceptual idea of scalability that we kind of talk about. And so, whatever you add in there might be additional features, or it might be additional development on building on to whatever you have inside that box already. So maybe you want to add extensions onto existing features. So this is just a general idea, way to explain it. And let me know if that's unclear or not. It could be a little bit unclear, but that's kind of the way I think about it.
I think that that is a good way to sort of conceptualize it. So just as being able to add more apps, I guess you could also sort of reverse that and remove things as well over time or certain times
Exactly.
of the year so that everything isn't showing at a specific time. Is that possible as well? Or is that something to look?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's exactly possible. So that's the whole idea of scalability. It's really just to be whatever you need it to be when you need it. And so if you don't need features, if you don't need things inside there anymore, you can simply take it out and it doesn't affect the structure of how everything is working. Um, so that's kind of the idea of scalability is in that regard. And in terms of the question of native, so the apps you download off the App Store or the Play Store, we call those native apps. That's an app that's designed for mobile. It's not meant to be a website. It's literally an app that you download onto your phone, and that gives you a lot more control over sort of how the app is designed to be. And so I'm sure many apps you guys have downloaded, whether or not it's your, it could even be your a web browser, and even technically Safari is a native app. These are all apps that you can sort of just download onto the App Store onto your phone, and that's where it lives.
Okay,
Matt,
so,
I
oh,
Yep.
sorry. So Matt, I do have an additional attendee with me here today, and she's
Mhm.
going to toss out a question as well. So,
hey
Sure.
Matt, I just had a
Hi.
quick question. I know in my experience with apps such as this one, we usually have
Mhm.
issues with a lot of usage by a lot of users at one specific time, such as move-in days, move-out days,
Mhm.
and trainings where there's a lot of people using the app at the same time.
Yeah.
Can you say more about like how that works with this app and how will it be able to handle that misusage or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, we've actually worked with events of all sizes, but the way to think about it is that whenever you have a lot of users on a single app, for example, if it's the app that's crashing, that means the developers haven't accounted for a large user base, meaning they haven't set up their own system to be able to handle that many people. And so if the app is not working, it's generally a result of that. It could be a few different factors, such as just too many people on the Wi-Fi, but on a university system, that shouldn't be the problem, generally because the university has accounted for that issue on their own end as well. So the idea behind what we do then is that we have a system that's set up that allows us to handle a large number of users at any time. So every app we release, for example, we worked with actual events and conferences before that have had 100,000 people there. And so our app can kind of account for that based on the number of people who are using the app. It can meet the demands. It can meet the amount of requests they're making outside the app to fit the need of what you guys have. So I'd imagine your move-in day is probably going to be anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 students, which even for us, that's actually quite minimal. That's a very small number for us to handle for because our system is designed to handle for a number much larger than that.
okay, thank
Awesome,
you.
thank you.
Matt,
Mhm.
there's another question just came in. Can your mobile app be used or downloaded on an iPad? Or their RAs have iPads provided and they use them as many parts of their job. So would the mobile app be just good for an iPad as well, or just on a mobile phone?
Yeah, you can definitely access the app on a iPad or even a tablet. It's definitely something we can do. We've done it before in the past for other people. It would just be an extension of our platform. So once again, on the topic of scalability, we design it to fit whatever phone size you might have in mind. So we can definitely take care of that too.
I guess going along with that, is it native only to iOS, or is it across iOS, Windows, and Google Play?
So we use Google Play, so Android devices and iOS devices are supported. So one thing we don't support right now is those who are using like BlackBerry devices, things of that nature. So basically, we only support Apple and Android phones, specifically because and I believe the stat is around 95 to 96% of users in the United States are strictly using those two devices. So we kind of cater our platform to fit those phones.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any
Okay,
other questions for Matt?
okay.
All right. Well, Yeah, thank you guys for having me today. This was a really fun experience. It's a really good opportunity. It's really interesting speaking to a laptop screen. But yeah, this has been fun, and thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And of course, the deck, whoever needs it, let me know, and I can send it over your way. And I believe Robert, you have the deck as well, right?
Correct, correct. And
Sure.
Matt, I would like to try to, I guess, share the deck with the Glucuho folks, and I'll work through that with you. But yeah,
Sure.
thank you, sir, for taking time out to share a little bit with us. It's always good to have some content developers sort of talk about the process and help us build, I guess, the jargon around what's needed to meet the needs from a technology standpoint within housing and res life. So again, thank you for that. And to everyone out there with Glucuho, our hope is to continue to try to find additional webinar topics that sort of might meet the needs of folks that do facilities and operations work, but then knowing that within facilities operations, there's technology involved, and there are other areas that we need to make sure that we're providing information for folks to develop as professionals. So again, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Jeremy, for hosting. And yeah, if there aren't any additional questions, I think we'll sign out.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. And yeah, you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.